Yeah, we'll just do it like this, like it's a straight table. See what I mean? And I get this crap out of my way.
What's up, guys? If y'all can hear us, we're live on the radio right now, but we're now live on YouTube.
Sup, YouTube? Glad to
Johnny's
be here.
in the other room over there. Again, we're gonna do the show. You're not gonna be able to hear him perfectly today. You're gonna be able to hear me and Micah. We're gonna try to get you guys to play the music. Right now, we got a song playing. We're listening to.
Jinkinenki.
We'll post the links in the YouTube links if anybody
Try
wants to
saying
check that
that.
out.
Y'all just trying to go right in after this.
There's
Yep,
Johnny.
Johnny's right here with us.
Yeah.
And share this
Yes.
out on with your friends if you want to watch live here in the studio. KPFT Houston. We're gonna cover Assange, coronavirus,
Innocent people in jail.
innocent people getting
Banks
put in jail,
being fined.
banks, and of course your phone calls. We want you guys, if you're listening from elsewhere,
713-526-5738.
even if you don't live in Houston, call at some point in the next hour. And we'll be on in just about 20-30 seconds. I'm going to see if I can get you guys to hear the music, but just stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Radio. So if you are moved by anything to support it, we're happy when you do, no matter how much, because of the fact that this is the best platform I think we have for access and ability to reach a broad audience. When we couple it with social media reach, etc., KPFT is 100,000 watts of power on the Gulf Coast down here, so it has huge conventional reach. And it's completely community funded, so we don't have commercials. We get to play music we like and talk about news
No
and
corporations.
take calls from you. And the only way this is possible is through listener support. So, again, if you can help kpft.org, there's lots of ways you can get involved. We're going to give free stuff away, too.
Cool. All right, guys, stay tuned.
Prepare for liftoff.
Trying to get the damn sound set up. Oh God, don't come in here.
I apologize for last week. I'm sorry.
What was wrong last week?
I was supposed to come to your event, but
Oh, don't worry about
I
it.
couldn't find the address.
That's cool.
I didn't.
Don't
find
worry
the
about
place.
it.
Next time you have one, I want to go.
All right. Jinkaninki. Try saying their name. I did some research on what it is. There you go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, Johnny. Derek's back. Johnny's back. I was alone. I missed you guys. But we're flowing now. We're on YouTube. We're streaming. Where are we streaming?
We are streaming live right now on the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel. For those who want to watch us live in the studio, you can do that. Again, that's Conscious Resistance. Freethinker Radio is the title, just Freethinker Radio Live. And we've just shared that out. You can always, of course, find Freethinker Radio, which is myself, Micah, and our producer, Johnny. What's up, Johnny? And you can find us at thehoustonfreethinkers.com. That's thehoustonfreethinkers.com. Archives, info about the show. You can check out a picture of us in case you've never seen who we are, what we look like. You can also find us on Facebook at Freethinker Radio. And yeah, as usual, we cover uncensored news beyond the left, beyond the right. We play underground music you might not hear anywhere else in the mainstream. And of course, we take your phone calls throughout the hour, 713-526-5738. And wow, Micah, it feels good to be back.
Well, I'm glad y'all are back for sure. Got into a lot of news while you were gone. One subject that I know people were beginning to have interest in, and I think it was kind of a tangent interest that was rooted in the 5G concerns, was that another one of these small local or small governmental bureaucratic bodies that makes decisions that affect us all, that most people don't know about, the Houston Tower Commission.
Oh gosh.
And we'd begun talking about it in your journalism on 5G, and you'd gone to some of the meetings, and you'd discovered, what might make some people question, but we're kind of like, okay, corporatism even on the local level.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, so two things on the note of 5G, and I'm glad you will get into this because it's a local story. And it's something Micah mentioned last week for those who were tuned in, and I did mention it late January, right before I left. I've been out of town for most of February, so I didn't get to attend this past week. There was a meeting of the Houston Tower Commission. As Micah said, this is one of these unelected bodies that many of us have never heard of. The mayor gets to choose this 7-member board, and here's a couple of interesting things about them. And you, Micah, you guys, you and Johnny will love this. Of course, after I attended the commission meeting last month and I spoke up, I talked all about that last month. It was kind of laughed out of the room. I was told, they had 2 of the leading experts on radio frequency radiation on the board, and that they weren't concerned about 5G and yada, 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 just, nothing to see here. Well, I did two things. I did some homework, of course. I looked into who are these people, and I decided, well, I want to get in touch with them. I want to send them some relevant information about what's going on with 5G and locally. And I was told by Devin Criddle. Devin has been a nice person to me. He is within the Houston Planning Commission. He said he looked into it and that he was told by the city's public information officer that they're not allowed to give out phone numbers or emails for the Tower Commission. So
Hmm.
you can go to the Houston Tower Commission website and it says this is where you're supposed to file complaints and appeals about towers if you have problems with that. And there's an email listed for one person who's not on the commission, just says email him and he'll tell you when the next meeting's coming up. Because that's the other thing. These people don't meet regularly where they're accessible for people who are concerned. They only meet when there's a complaint filed. And of course, when I was at the meeting, I asked very simply, can you just tell me how to file a complaint so I can spread that information around? We can use the radio to tell people and things of that sort. And I was not given any sort of straight answer. And then again, after the fact, so I'm going and emailing them and asking for information. And I told Devin at the Planning Commission, dude, this is very unusual. I've never, in 10 years of being involved in various forms of activism, I've never once been told there was a public official,
Public.
who's
That's
appointed by
hidden.
the mayor and serves the people, that you literally can't even get into phone number and email, and that they said you're not allowed to know this. So then, okay, I decided I guess I need to go do my own research, right? And I look up the chair of the Tower Commission, who is the main guy I interacted with. His name is Rob Todd. If you look him up, Rob Todd. He used to be a
Rob who? Who are you robbing?
Todd,
Oh, Rob.
Todd. He actually used to be in the city council late 90s, early 2000s. And if you look him up without getting too much in his personal history, because it's not totally relevant, it sort of shows his character. But you can find a Houston Press article about him in the mid 2000s, Micah, where they found out that he was having an affair with one of the other council members' wives. And that, that's okay, maybe not a wise decision. But the worst part, or one of the bad parts of it, is that he was using the taxpayer funded phone, the city phone, and racked up like $400 worth of bills. And he fought and fought and fought then to while this journalist, the actual journalist that was at the time in the Houston Press,
So he was taking advantage of his position.
he was taking advantage of his position as city council member with a taxpayer funded phone to text late at night one of the other council members' wives, and then the taxpayer funded and paid the bill, and he never had to pay for it. So that was all. So that was all back in the mid 2000s, right? So then I don't know what happened to him after that, but anyways, now here he is. He's appointed the chair of the Tower Commission. But to me, the worst part that I learned about this man is that he owns a company. Again, Rob Todd, if you look him up on LinkedIn, you can find all this. Is not difficult to, even though they won't give us his official city email. I looked up and I found out that he owns a company that has contracts, not only just owns a random company that has contracts with, say, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, AT&T,
Because those are big companies. Lots of companies have
but a
contracts,
company
right?
that specifically builds towers, builds Wi-Fi
Oh,
systems for stadiums, for hotels, and like openly says we can help get you connected. So you have a guy unelected, appointed by the mayor, who was given the 5G Wireless Champion Award by the telecom lobby, who's in the Tower Commission that's supposed to be the place that the people can file complaints. They won't tell you how to get in touch with them, and the chairman of this board is running a company that benefits off
so
contracts with
it's
these same
kind of like
companies.
the city is helping to hide the people that are benefiting from building the towers. In a,
I mean, isn't that crazy?
Mhm.
It's pretty openly a conflict of interest, I would say. And to Micah's point there, I mean, it's really disturbing to me that when I went up there last month, so I didn't get to go this past week, of course, but we did hear there was two people that went, and the decision got delayed another 30 days. The decision is around will they allow this tower in Third Ward that's 35 feet away from a home and about 50 feet away from a very popular bike trail that goes through the East End that they claim is not residential, even though there's homes very, very close. According to their definitions, it's non-residential. So residents of Third Ward have been fighting this since back in November. So that decision got delayed another month. So for anybody who cares about this, the Tower Commission meets the last Monday of every month. So it'll be March, the final Monday, 3:30 p.m. in downtown Houston. We'll be talking more about this over the next month. But I'm telling you, these people do not want us to be aware they exist. Even one, two, three, four, five, a dozen people, I guarantee you would freak them out because they do not want people to be paying attention to this
Are they scared of
little body.
sunlight?
It seems like they are scared of sunlight and sunshine on their activities. And I plan to go back to the Tower Commission, of course, and confront Mr. Todd with these facts to his face. And I'm going to go to City Council this coming week. I actually emailed City Council, all the new council members this morning with some real basic facts on 5G. And I want to talk to them about this conflict of interest. And the other thing I want to mention before I shut up is that I put out a new documentary while I was gone. It's only a couple of weeks old. It's called The 5G Trojan Horse. And I would love for everybody who's listening, whether you're in Houston or not, to watch it because especially in Houston, it's all about Houston. It's a narrative documentary that follows my journey of from back in September 2018 here on Freethinker Radio, asking these questions, going to City Council, asking these questions, interviewing Dr. Martin Paul, interviewing the Environmental Health Trust, interviewing attorneys from the ACLU, interviewing all the experts on privacy, health, loss of local power, the corruption. And I turned it into a documentary. It's full length documentary. It's about an hour and 35 minutes. So, sit down when you're ready to absorb it. It's been getting really well reviewed. It is for free, of course, online at the Conscious Resistance YouTube channel. It's been shared pretty widely. It's called The 5G Trojan Horse. We're getting about 30,000 views just in the last 2 weeks since it came out. And I'm hoping that number is going to keep going up. And I encourage everybody out there who wants to know more about that, look that up. Again, it's for free to check it out, The 5G Trojan Horse, and it focuses all on the Houston corruption as well as how that relates to the bigger picture.
Nice, interesting title as well. So there's so
What you
many
got, man?
things, so many things. You've been gone. You were going to talk to us before about Envision, and we might as well just talk about that for a minute and get some
Sure.
of those preliminaries. A little bit in Ordnance Show. I know we got a lot of news to get through, but
I wanted to, and I just kind of got lazy. I was like at the last day of this festival. So one of the reasons I was on the road, at least the last week, was at this really beautiful festival in Costa Rica that's consistently rated the world's most eco-conscious, most environmental friendly festival. And I think, as far as titles go, it's a
they don't
it's a
know about
deserving title.
J-Fest.
It's a deserving title in the sense that they bring in so many different considerations. And I'll just leave that for the viewers to check more about that in visionfestival.com if you want to learn more about it. But everything from 3 stages of awesome music, of electronic dancing going crazy, to more jam bands and kind of rock, to discussions on permaculture, community building, urban farming, spirituality, yoga, meditation, women's area, men's area, the beautiful beach, the jungle, it's just a great place to be. And it's one of the only festivals that I've been at, either attending or speaking, where, and again, in the jungle, people show up with pad and pen in hand and are there and specifically say, oh, I came here for the workshops. I came here to learn. I came here to spend, 4 or 5 days out here trying to get new ideas and take them home with me. And I really appreciate that. And, I mean, such a mix of people. There's a lot of course, Americans and Europeans. I met people from India, Australia, Germany, France, Italy, all through Central and South America. They definitely try to cultivate, make sure that the locals feel very welcome, and that the Costa Ricans are able to afford and to get into the event. And they did 300 plus planting of trees during the festival. It's on a
Wow.
former cattle ranch, which was, as you can imagine,
Raised or something.
kind of worn down. And this is their 10th anniversary, when they came in, one of the things is that they're trying to do is not just put on a music festival, but put together with the ideas of permaculture and remediating the soil and taking care of the planet. So every year they've brought in more trees, and they've transformed the land basically. And even with that, they have 8, 9, 10,000 people come out there for 4 days, 5 days in the jungle, dancing, partying, having fun, running around and learning. And people stay behind to make sure that there's not trash left behind. There's
Nice.
there's on-site recycling bins and compost piles, and just it's such a huge operation of 1,000 plus people, from building the stages, from people going around cleaning up trash, from all the presenters and everything. And yeah, I appreciate it, because I think on the surface it's easy to see some things like that and dismiss them as, okay, this is just a bunch of maybe privileged for some, or whatever word you want to use, going out into the jungle and just playing spiritual.
Well, maybe they'll come home and pick up some of the trash. I mean, I'm sorry, but I've been picking up trash lately, especially thinking about it because this particular area I'm in, and I know that's not everything, but what I'm saying is, bring these ideas, bring what they've been exposed to, what they've reflected on and discovered for themselves, maybe even outside the workshops there,
Yeah,
back,
exactly.
like you said, with the notebooks and such,
I think
and put
that's the
them.
whole goal, is if people can bring the knowledge back, right?
Well,
I think that,
I'd like to see some metrics on that as the festival grows,
well, one of the things, so this is my third year speaking at Envision, and every year, and it's become more, I guess, pressing for me as somebody who gets invited to speak places. And I said this during the talk, like, hey, if I was content with this, I could just, keep getting paid, because I get paid a little bit. That's cool to go paid, get fly to another country and experience that, and give some talks and share some ideas and put my information out there. And I could do that and just be satisfied. But at the same time, that's not why I'm doing what I am doing. At least it never was about the, like, hey, I'm going to become an activist and then one day I'll get paid to fly to Costa Rica and give a talk or whatever, right? But I could do that if I wanted to and just keep coming there every year. But what I've tried to do is say, what's changed for you since you came last year? For those of you who were here the year before, and in my talk this year, really emphasize, like, think of one thing that you can do, whether that means you go home and plant a tree, or you go home and clean up your backyard, literally and kind of metaphorically. Um, and how, if everybody who's coming there to with that effort to really change their lives and to empower themselves to actually do that and incorporate that into their daily activities. I mean, I think that's where you're gonna see the real long-term change, right? Is if people start changing their own personal actions and activities, not just, as I said at the talk, putting on your festival costume for the week and coming, especially at this place, right, where it's like, oh, we're the more enlightened ones because this is a transformational festival, this is a conscious festival, and it definitely is better. There's not just like Budweiser and just all this crap, whatever that. It's things that I would say are just
Garbage.
mainstream festival kind of garbage, right? That's not anything I'm interested in. So at least they take a lot of those aspects into consideration. I will say that at a festival of 10,000 people, the people that are there to learn, surprise, surprise, are still the vast minority of the people. A lot of people are, when the workshops start at 9, 10 a.m. and go till 4 or 5 p.m., they're just waking up from the party before, right? So some people, it's a free thing, right? Nobody's going to put a gun to your head and say you have to come learn for the workshops, but you hope that you get enough people to plant seeds. At least this is my hope. I hope that I can plant enough seeds and get people thinking about these things. And based on the response I get, people always come over and say, hey, thank you for that. Hey, let's connect. Let's network. Here's my company. Here's my project. Here's my thing I'm working on. So yeah, thanks for giving me a moment to share about that, Micah. I think people would enjoy, whether you go to a place like Envision or not, but just the idea and the understanding that there are people out there trying to have a good time and make it worth something, make it about something.
Yeah, I think those two, there's no reason they have to be, a dichotomy. You can be having fun and making it a better place. I mean, ideally, that's how it should be, right? And learning. Yeah, exactly. And a rising tide raises all ships, right? And if we all start being more productive and in our own walks, then yeah, that's great. Less waste, more efficiency, and more happiness. And I think that's something in the face of all this division and all this hate and all this police state we need to think about is the realization of our own dreams and happiness and empowerment for people, no matter how they are. And I'd like us, to continue to find examples of that because whether you hate Trump, hate Obama, love Obama, think the government's the answer, don't think the government's the answer. There's some basic human things that we need to deal with that I feel like some of the division gets in the way of us realizing that.
One other point I'll make, Micah, and we can move on to your story, is just that, Johnny, you kind of brought to my mind, and this is something I've heard a lot in these different circles, because when you start going to some of these events, you get some of the what they call the burner crowd, right? The people who go to Burning Man, which isn't just a bunch of dirty hippies. Like, some of these people are very wealthy
Clean
and from the
hippies.
tech industry who are kind of outside the mainstream in their thinking, but they've got money and they come to these. And I've met these people. They're like, how can I fund the next person who's got that genius idea that's going to change the world? And so they started their terms like thinking about your return on investment, not just in form of like how much profit are we going to make from this, but like, hey, we're going to invest in this venture and that's going to produce 1,000 planted trees that will, whether that's
What
just
are our
some
goals?
some corporations and companies might do those things just to kind of greenwash and make themselves look good. But I do know that there are a lot of folks out there who hate on people who have money and maybe like, oh, they're the enemy and this and that. And I don't think that's always just a clear cut case, that right, because there are people who get money and then they're like, how can I use this status I have now, or this abundance I have, to go
And
do something good with
and
it
you
and to
hit it when
invest
you
in good
said
stuff
status. Like it's really not always that you see them hating on people with money. You see them hating on people with. It's
with
almost
things I don't
always.
have.
And these are all just tools instead of worrying about tending their own garden and getting out there and cultivating what's in them. So the haters talk about it and haters make us famous and all that stuff. But beyond that, we got to just tend our gardens, grow what our purpose is, and all that. So yeah, I can't worry about those. But it is interesting because they do hate on people with money. They hate on people with, maybe a better. We've talked about it before with as far as even access, as far as in speech of open conventions and such. Yeah, yeah, I don't know, but that's a good one. Well, let's get into some of the news. I got a couple, and I think this one, at least local ones, and I think this one is pretty interesting, Derek. In the face of the hiding of the Tower Commission, Meanwhile, while there's all this secret government stuff going on and they want to hide their stuff, they want $8.5 million more just in Houston towards citywide video surveillance. What do you think about that? I mean, come on. And they're arguing apprehending violent criminals in Houston require. Well, it's
Yep,
never enough. Once you
85 million
feed the
though.
beast, 8.5 million in
Eight.
Houston.
Okay, like, dang, but that's
But
still a good
still,
amount. Like,
yeah, just for more cameras and such. Let's get into it. And they say that it requires more eyes on the street, and we know of all these other devices nowadays. Mayor Turner said at a press conference with the HPD that yeah, we need more eyes on the street. They may not come from added boots on the ground police presence, as it will come from a virtual network of surveillance technology. Turner said, and he has that 5G award too, right?
yeah, this is the same guy with the 5G award.
Surveillance
Surprise,
technology.
surprise.
Okay. We need more eyes and real eyes on the street, but it's going to require supplemental technology to what we have already. To do so, Turner announced that the city is seeking $8.5 million in private investment towards a citywide camera system and technology that will allow the city to work with Ring, a home surveillance.
No, no, this is bad news. No, this is really bad news.
Yeah,
Are you
I am
serious?
serious.
Dude, this is bad news. Okay, keep going, Micah. Sorry.
Call
This
in
is really bad news.
713-526-5738. But yeah, let's check it out. Let's check it out. So 5G Champion announced that the city's going to
Surveillance champion.
spending $8.5 million private investment towards a citywide camera system that will allow the city to work with Ring, a home surveillance camera service owned by Amazon. Under an agreement with Ring, owners of the cameras typically placed on street-facing doorbells will be able to opt into sharing footage with the HPDs. Hey, we have a call. Let's take it. Hey, Bob, how are you? Welcome to the air. You're on KPFT live now.
Well, I guess I just wanted to ask after listening to you talk about what Mayor Turner would like, what is the point of having more surveillance when we are turning criminals loose back on the street who are going out and committing more crimes after, being able to post pretty much non-existent bail? And I think you know what I'm talking about with some of the recent developments.
Definitely, I do appreciate that call, and it's a poignant question, and that's the point of the show, is to be able to ask these questions, and I think it's a part of weighing out what these crimes are, what an adequate sentence is, etc. But obviously, we do think a lot of people are getting out that have been held, have been found guilty of serious crimes. So thank you, caller. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that call, Bob. Thanks, everybody. Again, the number is 713-526-5738. Looks like that call or that story set off some
No, we're trying
some
to.
feelings
I
of
do have
people.
another one if you want.
Yeah, we
We
got
might
plenty
as
of
well.
calls on the line. Let's go ahead and get to the calls
hang
now.
on, MOD. I know you're listening.
Well, hold on,
Hang
Micah.
Oh, yeah.
Go a little further in the story, Micah,
Yeah.
before we jump in the next call.
If
Let's
we've got him
continue.
on hold, that's great. As of 2017, Houston police were significantly understaffed, they argue, when compared to other similar-sized cities. An independent performance audit of the city found. However, between 2008 and 2018, the city's violent crime fell by 4.8%, according to FBI data. Maybe it's more efficient. Maybe also when Gerald Goins is removed from the force. The number of violent crimes reported has fluctuated in recent months, Acevedo said, when describing a need for a video network. Other area cities have made similar investments. West University Place, and it's over on I-10 West there, is implementing a $4.5 million virtual gate system of cameras and license plate readers. And in January, Katy said it would put in place 22 license plate readers. This is not the first time that the 5G champion, Mayor Turner, has called on the philanthropic and business communities to supplement the surveillance state. Last year, he announced the 50 for 50 Parks initiatives, aiming to form partnerships between businesses and local parks. In January, he called for $50 million in donations towards homelessness initiatives. Also among Turner's commitments were a $1.5 million in added overtime pay to increase police presence citywide with a focus on hot spots, as well as an ongoing agreement to test out a gun violence monitoring system known as ShotSpotter. Hear of that one before, Derek?
Yep, that's the one that is basically, it's supposed to detect if there's gunshots going off. They first started installing in San Francisco and other high crime areas, but what we found out later is that it records all the time. So they'll put it in a telephone pole or light pole, and they say, okay, it's only going to record if here's a gunshot or some loud noise, but they listen and record all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting they want to put all that stuff out there, yet on the no-knock raids they didn't even wear cameras. I mean, I think they're just saying something. We want to put all these cameras on you. But yeah, it turns out, I don't know. Should we take that call? I guess we'll take
Well,
that
one
call
other
then.
thing I want to say before we go to the caller, just for the listeners, again, you're listening to Freethinker Radio on 90.1 KPFT Houston. We're talking about Mayor Sylvester Turner calling for $8.5 million for new surveillance equipment, specifically using Amazon's Ring doorbell camera and that whole network. And Micah, I want to take us back just to like December 2018, 2019. The ACLU talks about Amazon's disturbing plan to add facial recognition surveillance to your
That's so
front
fast. I
door.
remember that.
This is late 2018. So over the last year, it's already grown, and now Amazon is working to put Ring, which is the doorbell
It's
camera.
3 months ago.
The doorbell camera fitted with facial recognition software, and we've been talking about this for a while. Remember, Amazon's also developing a facial recognition program that's spelled with recognition with a K for police body cameras. So Amazon's trying to sell facial recognition to the cops to wear on their body cameras. They're trying to use it to put in the doorbell cameras, and the ACLU is calling this a privacy nightmare. And we're seeing this come into fruition now. And a lot of these programs, like we've seen in cities Detroit, New Orleans, where they call it the green light program, where businesses opt in voluntarily to give police access to their private cameras. That's how it's starting. It's
Oh yeah,
first,
Taco
it's a
Bell. You can
voluntary
bet
program.
PepsiCo and them will be up there.
Well, they basically say, and then this is the other thing, the sort of subtle social engineering aspect is they'll tell people, well, maybe on the insurance side of things, your insurance rates go down if they know that the cops have access to your cameras, which theoretically makes you safer, right? So there's
Yeah.
all these ways to kind of subtly sell it to
you.
businesses.
Yeah.
So ACLU is warning that, quote, Amazon is dreaming of a dangerous future of surveillance. And that was just last year, and here we are, and the mayor of
It
Houston's
wasn't a
calling
year
for
ago,
that.
though. Don't be deceived by Derek's smooth words. That was just last year. That was 3 months ago. Okay, we're at the end of February, and that article came out in December. But it's very important, and I'm not trying to mess with you too much, Derek. But yeah, it's the truth, and that's how fast this stuff's moving ahead. Meanwhile, meanwhile, we have a caller, don't we?
Yeah, let's get to the caller.
Hello, Mr. Willie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, let's
what
hear it.
What a scary future we have ahead of us. It reminds me a lot of like China's social credit system. They've
Yep.
got all that facial recognition software and technology. They've got millions of cameras all around the major cities in China. But also, I'm a big fan of George Carlin, and he was the one who said, these days in America, you're on camera at all times from all angles. And, everyone here just seems to think it's just dandy.
What do you think about that?
Always being surveilled.
Well, I want to say one thing first. You bring up a really important point about China and the social credit system. Again, in the documentary, I mentioned the 5G Trojan horse. This is something we go over because a lot of people still think that things like that are simply fiction or something from Black Mirror. It's a TV show. It's not a reality. But just last year, over 1 million Chinese citizens were denied the right to fly out of their own country because their social credit score was too low. And their score can go low from jaywalking, posting quote-unquote fake news online, having antisocial behavior, not picking your trash up on time. I mean, it's a very clear
Being
way.
late to work, being drunk in public,
Being,
things
yeah,
like
all sorts of
those.
behaviors that they deem antisocial.
You can't get your apartment either.
And we're not far from off from that being in the United States. And I appreciate you bringing that to everyone's attention who's listening, who might not realize that these steps, like say what the mayor wants to do here, these are all incremental steps towards that complete surveillance state, that complete surveillance grid, that social credit system being implemented in the United States.
Absolutely.
Get your
And,
own
not
Big
to
Brother
mention
camera.
the million or so Chinese Muslims that were detained and are now in re-education camps, the Uyghur people.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this lot, it's a lot to unpack here, and we appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, so it starts with surveillance. Next thing you know, we're all going to be in re-education camps.
I think it's definitely not far off from there because, I mean, in all seriousness, when you lose privacy, when you lose the ability to speak out, And we're not just talking about people coming after you and maybe locking you up, but in a way where we're using the digital tools where they can literally lock people out of society. Where if you're, it's not just like your unpopular opinions are now going to get you banned from social media. We're already seeing that happen with Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and that's the digital world, you
I'm in
know.
Facebook jail right now.
So you see the digital version of it, right? But then the next step is where that translates into, oh, we're sorry, you can't get this car loan because of what you posted.
Oh yeah. And speaking of unpopular opinions, and I'm about to sign off here. Just one more thing. You mentioned the freedom of speech, and that's in the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion these days, but when the First Amendment fails to be enforced, I guess that's when the Second Amendment is supposed to come into play, right? I mean, I don't know.
I think it's definitely advisable for us to be able to remain able to defend ourselves. Thank you guys. Thank you for the call and thank you for listening.
All right, thanks for having me.
Definitely. It does seem like people are interested, and when it's kind of like the Tuttle thing in a way, because when it's right here, when it's in their neighborhoods, when it's right over there, and they're putting up license plate readers and stuff, all of a sudden people do start caring, and yeah.
Mike, that is, I'm really glad you brought that story to our attention. When you said something about it before the show started, I was like, oh, wow, new surveillance tools. That's because it's everywhere already. I mean, and you go into any new neighborhood. I've noticed this when we were doing the campaign because we were going door to door, just how many people, whether it's specifically the Amazon Ring or some other brand, it's the same concept. Those things can all be,
Yeah. That's why it's important to get out and mix with people to see what is, because a lot of times mass media that people were immersed in lots of different ways, or our own private feed bubble, it creates a subset of reality. Well, when you get out there, you're kind of thrown into seeing what the people are really doing. Because no matter what we think is right, wrong, or better, there is that, and then there's what's really going on, and you have to meet people where they are. Otherwise, they're gonna think we're just too radical. Why wouldn't I have it? Everyone has it, and then so it's frustrating at times, but at the same time, I think it's part of being in the lived world. You have to go out there and meet people.
And we're confronting the fact that a lot of the people in the world that we coexist with are kind of blindly swallowing up this technology. 2019 Christmas season, the biggest gift purchase was the digital home assistant, Amazon Echo, Google Nest, all those sort of things. So people are welcoming these things openly into their house. And in that, as the caller was saying, that puts us one more step closer to
digital vampires. Come in.
But hey, maybe we should take a quick music break. I know we got lots of news to cover, but we're already halfway through. One more caller? Yeah.
Right, MOD's been waiting for a long time. And he donated and helped KPFT more than once.
All right, well, let's get MOD on Freethinker Radio here on 90.1 KPFT Houston. What's going on, man?
Hey, long time no talk.
We build our own prisons, don't we?
We're trying our best not to. I don't know about you, but a lot of them, it seems like they're readily available for our purchase should we want a Big Brother camera right there,
Yeah, well, that's Amazon, but the last caller is right. On the 2012, IBM and Cisco went and started in a real city called Xinjiang, 2.5 million people. And the Huawei, whatever system, those are just contractors that took that 5G infrastructure, and now they're deploying it in Britain and Australia. So they're stay on top of that because it's moving really quick now, and we're gullible to our own demise with these Ring cameras. They have the ones on wheels, right? They're called have you seen those Priuses driving around? Those they have stenciled on the side door, NURO.
Yeah, I've been wondering what those were.
Yeah, so that has a quad pad on top with a 360-degree camera.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They're basically mapping out the traffic and the patterns. So until they get the satellites like Elton Musk wants to do, Derek, about the satellites he wants to put up there for the 5G.
Say that again?
It's coming. But hey, can I tell you something about never letting a crisis go to waste?
Oh, yes.
Coronavirus?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to be getting into the coronavirus for sure. Share your thoughts on it.
Oh, well, it's a seasonal cold, and it's actually dissipating more than acquiring. But I'm looking at, the New York Fed and the banks, and yesterday Goldman said sees zero earnings growth for 2020 due to this virus contagion. And then Bank of America, 5 minutes later, announced yesterday at 8:25, the global economy is heading for the worst year since financial crisis due to this virus. So
It's the virus's fault, MOD. It's the virus's fault.
my God, yeah, they know 10 months out. So yeah, how about this? Your listeners and yourselves, you got to do me a huge favor and look up corona.help. The word corona, the beer, .help. And that'll take you to a watered down 80,000 foot reporting portal that is the 6th largest medical institutions in the world. And when you go to that, go to the bottom of that portal, and you'll see an actual live feed of the world's contagion of this type of virus. There are more people recovering than acquiring. This thing is a seasonal virus. The flu season internationally starts the 1st of November and ends in February. This is that type of virus. The other type of virus is called rhinovirus. Those are the ones that go into spring. They like moisture, like the Spanish flu of 1918. It killed a bunch of people, I think. Y'all know about that one.
Yes.
This flu is on the downturn, but the Fed, who has kept these investment firms in the banks going because they're insolvent right now. And I don't know if y'all been watching the market this last week or not, but
Yes.
it's over a 10% contraction. So now the Fed is warning that this is going to onslaught our next market correction. So I've been waiting for what kind of BS that could they use to do this. I think this might be it, guys.
Good points, all MOD, and we do appreciate your call. I thank you much, and talk to you again real soon.
All right, guys, this is Freethinker Radio on 90.1 KPFT Houston. We appreciate all the calls. We're going to continue with the music, the news, and your phone calls here on 90.1 KPFT. Who do we got on the line, Johnny? Or where are we going to next? What's music?
We're about to play some Ganesha.
Ganesha. All right, cool. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What is?
Hey, if you want to take one more call on it, she's got a different opinion. She's basically saying like how they caught somebody with she had a neighbor who caught somebody trying to like break into cars essentially using it, but she's basically asking what the balance is, like where's the line.
Yeah, of course,
like,
there's
she's like,
good of
she's
it,
like there's
but
use for it,
yeah.
but what's the balance? Where
Let's go over there,
we're listening to Ganesha.
Did you hang up? Yes. Sorry, the 69 count innocent Houston to be done. That's not it. Sorry, not this person. Ooh, I don't want to touch these now. People with coronavirus probably use them.
Watch out for coronavirus. All right. Welcome back.
Ganesha, Otanana Trio, El Jumbotron. You hear them all here, and you can hear them at House of J Tuesday, March 3rd. It's going to be an early show.
When is that? That's like a couple days from now, right?
That's like a couple of days from now, and it's going down at on Hutchinson Street over there at House of J. You can find out about it, if you can Google. But
Cool.
I'm pretty excited about it because Otanana Trio, they're only here maybe once a year.
Coming all the way from Japan, right?
Yeah, good stuff. But yeah, let's wrap up the local. We've been having a great show. Thanks everyone for calling in. Again, that number is 713-526-5738, KPFT Houston. Turns out, this is following up on a story we've been covering for well over a year now. Keeping on top of this one. 69 convicted on ex-Houston's cop, false evidence could see new trials. They always have to make sure he's an ex-cop soon as he it gets real, right? Prosecutors have identified 69 additional people possibly convicted on false evidence from former Houston Police Narcotics Officer Gerald Goins. 69 additional people. Yeah, this just came out this week. As a result of ongoing probe of Goins' work, prosecutors filed motions Wednesday requesting judges appoint lawyers for the 69. Man, that's going to cost some money. So they can begin the process of seeking to have their cases overturned. The defendants identified all pleaded guilty and never went to trial, and their charges against them, check it out, pled guilty. They all took a plea. Anyway,
They're probably pressured into it.
And the charges against them were solely based on Goins' casework, like no other people.
Yep, that's how they work. They pressure people. You're going away for life unless you take this deal.
Most of the cases involve, with someone lying about you. Most of the cases involve a delivery of a controlled substance, because that's easy. They can just have that in their pocket and put it on you. And nearly all resulted in the loss of liberty, freedom, ranging from a few months in the Harris County Jail to 4 years in the TDC. According to the DA. Lawyers for each defendant would review whether the evidence presented by Goins was material in convicting their client, and if so, decide to request a new trial. Yeah. Earlier this month, two brothers, Otis and Stephen Mallett, charged in 2008, saw their convictions overturned. And I guess you should know already who Goins is. The officer at the center of the scandal now stands charged with the murder of January 28th of Dennis Tuttle and Rogina Nicholas. And I've been asking now why we don't hear of some kind of animal death here.
Yeah, where's PETA or some of the other animal rights groups?
Because Star was slain
HPD
unnecessarily.
killed a dog.
I recently saw one where, unrelated in another state, where an individual stabbed a police dog and they shot the guy. But here we got people shooting a civilian dog, and he's not even mentioned in the papers. Anyway, Goins is accused of lying about the drug buy and other casework. It turns out that the DA, the Houston Police Department, and the FBI all launched probes of the event. And that costs money and time. Look at all the money and time of useful people that's just going into this. His former partner, and this is why we need to, catch criminal cops even earlier, because they can wreak so much havoc. His partner is also charged with state and federal court with tampering with government record. After the brothers' convictions were overturned, Ogg said defendants convicted between 2008 to 2019, in which Goins played a substantial role, would be entitled to a presumption that the former narcotics officer provided false evidence.
Definitely an important story to stay on and keep covering, because as you said, Mike, I mean, people's lives, some people are getting time, they're getting, relieved from prison time, which you can never give that back. But they're at least being given their lives back for the moment.
I'm going to wrap it up real quick on this story. Prosecutors ultimately identified 441 cases Goins worked between 2008 and 2019, which led to 263 convictions against 234 defendants. 69 identified this week were arrested solely on Goins' casework. So
Hopefully 69 more people will actually get their their words heard, and if those people are indeed innocent, and this is all based on lies from a lying killer cop, then they are freed and let go immediately. And unfortunately, as you like to point out, Micah, and it's I think worth pointing out, is that the taxpayers are the one who end up footing the bill on all this. Unfortunately, it's like
I mean,
you
they
get
paid for the bullets that killed Starr.
pay for the cop's salary, then you pay for the housing the cop while he's on trial, then you pay for the investigations. I'm going to move on real quick to one national or international, I guess, story that we just touched on with MOD, our caller, who was expressing some skepticism towards the coronavirus. But I guess before I do that, we did have one other caller that called on the break, and she didn't come on the air, but she just wanted to offer an alternative point of view, which I think is worth hearing. She was saying in relation to the Ring doorbell cameras and the facial recognition that she doesn't like Big Brother. She says she's not one of these people who lets the insurance companies know how fast she drives and all in her life and things of that sort, but that she, can see a benefit to some of the technology. One of her neighbors was pointing out that he was able to catch a criminal through the doorbell camera and catch somebody messing with his truck or something, right? So she just wanted to say that, throw that out there, and I think that is true, right? Is that a lot of these technologies that we're discussing, 5G, etc., have the potential to revolutionize and evolutionize our world and upgrade it and make it very cool and exciting and things of that sort. But we're kind of in a digital arms race of whether or not the people in the control of the technology are going to be those who believe in liberty and privacy and encryption and that sort of future, or control, spying, manipulation.
You can use a drone.
I mean, those, yeah, absolutely, there are. Those things have been around for much longer than it's just that now that everything's shifted towards the cloud, right? Which, just FYI, if somebody says they're putting something on the cloud for you, that just means somebody else's computer, because there's no cloud. It's on somebody else's servers is basically what that means. So
It's not in the sky.
when you upload through Ring or whatever other company, it doesn't have to be Amazon, it's going to their servers to be stored and cataloged and used for who knows what. Maybe they notice, hey, this person comes home at the same time every day. That's a good time to feed them ads or whatever. It could be as innocuous as selling you things or just giving the cops access. That's the thing, is Amazon wants to partner with the cops. So there is a delicate balance that can be struck.
They want to beat it.
But it's up to each individual to be skeptical. All right, I'm going to be quick with this. The coronavirus, two things I just want to say on this topic, because we don't have a lot of time, and hopefully on Monday when me and Micah do our 2-hour show on the HD dial, which is from 4 to 6 p.m. on Mondays, you can we'll have time to get more into this issue because it is definitely deserving of our time. And this one is coming from the Mind Unleashed. Controversial theories suggest coronavirus was created in a lab. And you might hear that type of title and immediately like, whoa, what kind of conspiracy theory is
I don't
this?
know what you've been eating.
But then you start going into some of the people who are making these claims, and these aren't just your weirdo uncle who's up all night watching documentaries on YouTube. These are evolutionary biologists from Scripps Research Center who are saying that the theory that this was engineered virus is entirely plausible, and estimates that the virus could have infected its first victim back as far as October 1st. So this article looks into that. I will post that in the YouTube chat for those who are watching. We'll post it on the Freethinker Radio Facebook page. But the gist of it, friends, for those who are listening, is that we were told that the virus originated from the wet market or the seafood market, from people eating bats potentially and things of that sort. But it just so happens to
People have been eating bats for a minute now.
It just so happens to be in that same area in Wuhan, China, that there is a bio lab that is studying these type of crazy viruses and things that could be used as bioengineered weapons. Now, whose weapon was it? Was it something being smuggled from the Canadians? I mean, there's a lot of questions around this, but the point is that the story we're being told, once again, is not accurate. And one major point I want to make, Micah, and I imagine many of the listeners on KPFT, which we're very thankful for us to have this home to bring this information, that you guys might not have heard of something called Event 201, which is a exercise. Now, Micah, how often these exercises seem to happen before major events, right? Yeah. So about 6 weeks before the coronavirus reports started coming out, the Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, and the World Bank and some others were involved in a simulation that they called Event 201, which 6 weeks before the coronavirus started to be reported, they simulated a coronavirus outbreak. Not the exact same one, of course, because how could they know? But a coronavirus nonetheless. And in this simulation, Micah, everything was discussed from how do we handle these quote-unquote conspiracy theorists spreading disinformation. They did this as if it was happening in real time. So they had military officials, they had media officials and health officials, and they clearly say, and you can find this on their website and on YouTube if you search Event 201. You don't have to trust any random people on YouTube, watch the videos yourself and see what they say. They specifically mention, well, in the face of an outbreak, we might have trouble containing disinformation spreading on social media. And in this simulation of a coronavirus outbreak, they specifically talk about the potential need to quarantine or arrest people who are spreading fake news about the spread of the virus. And now, just to bring it to reality, the website I write for, The Mind Unleashed, and several other websites and YouTube channels have been flagged as fake news in the recent weeks for reporting on these kind of things and reporting that, hey, a biologist says that there's a potential this could have been engineered. Just reporting facts. And now, just like in that simulation of Event 201, the stories that don't fit the mainstream narrative are being tagged as fake news, called fake news, and discussed. So that's one angle. But here's the big thing I really want to talk about, Micah, because where does this go, right? Whether or not somebody believes that the coronavirus, because I've seen two main streams of thought. It's either worse than we're being told, and say the Trump administration or these people or the health authorities are kind of keeping it quiet, or it's being blown out of proportion and it's not as bad, just like past things, and so they're going to use this to sell vaccinations and things of that sort, right? So you take your pick on that. But I do know this is just yesterday, an article published by a professor of law from University of Arizona, professor of medicine at University of Arizona, two different professors, titled "Airplanes Spread Diseases Quickly, so maybe unvaccinated people shouldn't be allowed to fly." And so this is the next step that we're talking about. Not only this, we've been talking over the year of forced mandatory vaccinations, removing exemptions, but now the idea that well, all those unvaccinated people, those anti-vaxxers, unscannable, who, because of them failing to do that, they're going to spread these diseases or these viruses so quickly that maybe they should lose their privileges. Now, going back to what our caller said earlier.
Why can't they just disinfect an airplane?
One of our callers mentioned the social credit score, right? How do you think a social credit score might be affected by somebody? By, you know, how do you think your credit score would be if you choose not to vaccinate?
To endanger the world.
If you're one of those anti-vaxxers. Yeah, it's like all of this is becoming.
You're an enemy of humanity at that point.
So you're choosing to endanger other people. At least that's what the language will be. So your score is going down. So you're going to lose your right to fly. But even before the social credit scores here, you've got a law professor and a medical professor, Micah, from University of Arizona, already proposing that should be something that should be allowed to happen. So I just think that we're at a really dangerous point.
We're behind time for not already having it, is what they're suggesting.
I want to just invite anybody to call in with their thoughts on this. In favor or against. Well, no, they're saying within a week we'll have the vaccine within a week.
Different.
Don't worry. Well, in all seriousness, we have to think about this too, Johnny. I don't know if you've seen the videos. They're floating around there on Twitter and elsewhere online. People are literally being welded into their homes in China because of these quarantines. They're literally welding people's doors shut to quarantine and control them. So they're taking extreme measures in China.
What if there's no people left to let you out?
The governments are saying, "Oh, we're handling this as best as we can," right? And I don't think that the U.S. government would be beyond those sort of extreme measures if this virus or whatever it may be does spread.
I don't think the command would be, but I think you got to wonder about the foot soldiers, and
apparently the Chinese foot soldiers have no problem.
They're going to have to have they'll have to have all these special forces ones out there doing that, and robots and stuff like that. It would be crazy. These people that were talking about civil war in America, this is a whole other level of crazy, but I don't put it past them. So I think people need to keep the conversation going, because if anybody's ever going to stop it, it will be people choosing not to weld people in.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be able to reach the people who say, like you said, the foot soldiers, right? Well, in those videos, the foot soldiers, these Chinese cops seem to have no problem. I mean, there's videos of
China.
People
they got
screaming.
A little book that says how to rule everybody.
I mean, they've got people much further indoctrinated in China, I would say, than maybe as. I don't know. It's kind of it's more blatant, let's say that, than in the U.S. But there are definitely lots of propagandized, heavily indoctrinated people.
True. Yeah, it gives and takes everything away.
Just to wrap that kind of thought up for the listeners and the callers and everybody tuned in, coronavirus is spreading. Lots of people are skeptical of the claims. Now there's ideas being floated that maybe those who don't vaccinate shouldn't be allowed to fly. The idea that mandatory vaccination should be pushed, and you better believe that most people will embrace that because, well, it's coronavirus. If you don't do that, everybody's going to die.
Every time, like SARS, MERS, they have a higher death rate than coronavirus, but coronavirus spreads so fast, right? So they all have some certain fear factor, right? That it's perennial topic. Like MOD was saying, we have these sicknesses that come regularly, and yes, it's like bad legislation. If it doesn't make it through one fear attack, maybe it'll make it through next time. It'll gain a few more points, a few more points, a few more things that people finally accept because we finally made enough people afraid of these different things.
And I do want to say, just on the creepiness note, is I recently ran into the book Unit 731, which is about man-made biological warfare.
What was it called again,
It's
John?
called Unit 731.
Unit 731.
It's a very dark book, so I don't recommend it for anybody for the faint of heart. This was like human experiments and things like that. But in Japan, they definitely were experimenting with bringing back the
Bubonic plague, yeah.
Bubonic plague, sorry. I listened to it, I didn't read it. But they were talking about bringing that back, via rats and fleas and stuff. So it's not like people haven't thought of making their own disease for a long time.
And the U.S. government is no stranger. U.S. government.
That it is or it isn't that, but it's in the area where that happens.
There's all kinds of questions popping up in the chat. I definitely appreciate everybody in the chat. We got people asking, well, in some of these places, what happens to the children if the parents get sick? All sorts of questions popping up there. Things we don't have possibly time to take on the phone.
But
So-
we are going to hang out for a couple minutes afterwards on the YouTube channel for those who want to go to the Conscious Resistance YouTube and continue the conversation for a few minutes afterwards. We got less than a minute, really. I just want to mention,
Oh, God.
we didn't have time to get into this, but Micah and I will go much further in depth. I know we both got more to cover, but I would feel remiss.
Keep going for a little bit, 'cause
Jewel-
everybody's not here yet.
Julian Assange is fighting extradition right now. I think this is extremely important to talk about because the U.S. government is trying to bring him here. He's an Australian citizen, bring him here as if they own him, and they've claimed that they own him. And he is fighting extradition from the UK right now. News reporting saying that he's being held during the extradition trial, which is taking place this whole week. He's being held in a glass box in the back of the courtroom, not allowed to, his lawyers are not allowed to access him directly. He's being held, and this is not a joke, being held in a glass box in the UK in a courtroom as he fights extradition to keep from being brought to the United States, where more than likely he will not survive. And on top of that, we also had reports coming from Politico and elsewhere
Get Epstein.
showing that leaked recordings show that one of Trump's new appointments, intelligence chief, makes it clear that it was under Donald Trump's orders to remove Julian Assange from the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK and to bring him to the US. So for those of you who are wondering, well, how come Trump used to say he loves the WikiLeaks during the campaign, and
love
all of
the
a sudden he's
WikiLeaks.
like, who? I never heard of him. It's because he's
Go get
directly behind the persecution of somebody that, and this is an attack on the First Amendment, on journalism everywhere, and you can barely see it anywhere in the mainstream. It's definitely not on CNN.com. I mean, I think it's a tragedy, but this is going on, and if Julian Assange does get brought to the United States, we should not expect any semblance of a fair trial to be, shown to this man. And I just want to make note of that. There are people all this week fighting, raising awareness, rallying, protests in DC and in the UK, trying to keep this conversation going. So, I think it's important, whatever your feelings are on Julian Assange, realizing the bigger implications of this.
Man, I saw some stuff about the way they were treating him, and that just ain't right either. I'm just saying. I mean, come on. All right, we'll be followed by Afrotronic. I'm looking forward to listening to the music on the ride home. I see the U.S. government's fined one of these banksters again. It's like a slap on the wrist. I think it's like permission to play or something, right? They slapped Wells Fargo $3 billion, for its fake account scandals. Yeah, remember, Wells Fargo was a TARP bailout bank. They did take that money from everyone and accept it. And that wasn't enough. They had to keep on going. So, I know where we are.
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and close out for the day. This is Freethinker Radio, 90.1 KPFT Houston. My name is Derek. I'm here with Micah and Johnny. And stay tuned.
Yeah, we are. We
All
are
right,
closing
we're out of here. Peace.
Y'all have a good one.
KPFT's 50th birthday is Sunday, March 1st, and you're invited to the party.
This little
We're
thing's
marking
cool.
this
What's
moment.
up, guys?
Oh, we're here. We're here.
We're here. The show following us isn't here yet, so we don't have to rush out so quickly.
So
but,
many tabs left open.
Micah was
Fines and
starting to go into
banksters.
this Wells Fargo being fined $35 million.
That's only one. Look at this one. That's only one.
I mean,
Look
$35
at
million, $3 billion.
multiples.
Like Micah said, that's still like a slap on the wrist to
Yeah.
bankster. $3 billion. They shit that out every day, right? It's
Oh,
nothing.
we can cuss now. Shitty
Okay.
to fuck bang.
Shitty fuck.
George
Um,
Carlin, 7 words, all up in here.
And for those who couldn't hear
Grab your
Johnny,
CD.
Johnny's here with us.
Yes, I got it when I was out there.
Hi,
Johnny!
guys.
He helps make it all possible
Johnny's
for
making the show
sure.
run. Thoughts, Johnny? Anything you want to share about the
Today's
ring
show.
or everything?
That was a fun show, and we talked about a lot of things that tied in together without even really intending on it. So I mean, it's
Oh,
kind of
now.
getting scarier how everything's, I guess, more and more connected to each other. You know, these big companies. Our calls were going crazy for the security questions. So even though we only put on maybe 3 or 4 people, there's probably 2 or 3 more people that called and voiced their concerns. And a lot of people are worried about the ring. I'll say a lot
Yeah.
of people are worried about that coming through. And some guy said, China makes them, and they might have a backdoor similar to Huawei. But
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know anything about where they're manufactured, but it's a
Where's
thought.
everything made nowadays, And then they talk about people not having direct contact to China. Well, I mean, there's Chinese food and stuff. I'm just saying. I mean, candy and things. I mean, like, come on, we all gotta connect to China. Ever since Kissinger went over there and made him most favored trade partner with Clinton and all that too.
I think it was cool though to see as soon as Micah, like you said, Johnny, as soon as Micah talked about the ring story, our little phone board here just lit up. Like
So
people
talk
around
about it in
Houston.
your like birthday parties and all this stuff because maybe it's a trigger issue that can get people talking about freedom, privacy, surveillance. And think about it. People could act like they don't care about privacy, but do they care about aspects of the Fourth Amendment, like not having the right to go through your papers and through your information? Because that's really where this surveillance leads to, is the not just the loss of privacy in this generalistic way, but the loss of the ability to be free of searches without a warrant because you're constantly being searched and all your information will be being processed. So
They're sharing that with the cops. I mean, even if you had those cameras in your house, you'd imagine that a lot of the people have cameras inside their house as well, maybe running on the same system.
well, I don't
So
put it
I'd
past
imagine that the cops could just go ahead and log into that.
can they chop and screw a videotape is what I want to know. So Goins wants to go in. He's like, yeah, they had heroin here. See, here's the video of them having heroin in their house where they just edit it. I
The
mean,
cops are just gonna be
eventually
pulling
everybody
out
just believes
CGI
in
and
the
shit.
ring well enough that it's authority. Maybe not for little people like us, right? But maybe for an Epstein or an Assange or a real leader.
Yeah, and I think it is important whether you guys wherever you guys are listening, as you know, whether if you're in the U.S., this is definitely happening. I imagine even if you're not in the U.S., Amazon's a global company; they're selling the ring all over the world. So people seem to care, and honestly, I was surprised because typically when we talk about surveillance, I've found people don't give a shit.
Yeah,
Like that's
it's
been my
true.
experience. They're just like,
I
yeah,
ain't gonna
whatever.
lie, dude.
Yeah, I
But
already got
that's
a cell
something that's
phone.
right there.
Yeah,
That's
but
something
this
that's right
this
there.
like that was a trigger where people you're like $8.5 million in Houston, cameras around the city, spot shotter, and then the phones start lighting up. So maybe this is a way again to really help people see. And we do have to. What I'm trying to do with the documentary and with the book and stuff is encourage a sort of skepticism towards the technology because we live in a technological world. We're broadcasting using these tools right now, right? But we have to decide like we have to at least be conscious and say, okay, yes, I accept this.
Yep.
Yes, I accept this. Instead of just
Recognize the
yes,
dangers. Like we
whatever,
all love to use fire, right? But we're not just going to leave it on the rug. Like really, seriously. And I think there's a lot of things like that where we don't all people in general don't see things from both aspects of, things. I heard Ken Kesey talking on a video the other day, and he said, and I thought it was interesting. I don't follow a lot. I just recently was reading a book of his, so I looked him up. But he was saying to use this example of the pro-life and the pro-choice movement that at heart they're very similar. They're very similar people, and I thought this was important when we try to get past division. And he pointed out that they were just being used by politicians. And he said at heart they're really similar. They both want to defend the undefendable people. They both care about people.
I've always thought about that at the root of the problems. I mean, I thought the same thing about the gun control issue. Whenever we used to go around and talk, I'd kind of mention that the motivations for people to have guns and not have guns are both safety. And so that's what people are concerned about. It's just a matter of dispute between how you go about that safety. And
people want to feel safe.
yeah, but I mean, it could be kind of like the 7 habits thing where you're not supposed to so much worry about other people's methods as long as your method is working. But I guess it gets sticky. There's things that are more intertwined.
So I closed up mine, but do we have any interesting comments that we should address real quick before we wrap up?
Let's check the comments real quick. We got to quit using bank. Hey, Johnny. What's up, Johnny?
What's up? Hijinks.
Thanks, guys. Rock on, dudes. Have a good one. Keep the First Amendment alive. At least bankers have stopped killing themselves. Free Assange. Fear and stress lowers your immune system. That is important as well.
Yeah.
People want to keep us
We're
on
talking
the
about empowerment.
fear paradigm.
We got to work.
Spanish flu came from the vaccine. There's definitely some interesting research to point to that. I want to know if the videos I saw people hemorrhaging their life out was coronavirus victims. I've seen that.
Oh,
There's pictures of
gross.
people in China that are literally just people walking down the street and collapsing, seizures, and there's a lot of speculation going on now. And I don't know that this is something we can get into on the
Maybe
show yet.
it's just a
but
whole
people are
other
trying-
thing that leaked.
Zombies.
Well, what people are trying to connect it is 5G to the coronavirus because Wuhan is one of the main places that they installed 5G in China. And there's some studies out there talking about how the 60 hertz frequency can affect our bodies, the
Skin.
oxygen in our cells, right? And so that can break the immune. I mean, there's just this whole theory, right? And I'm not really sure I
Ain't
believe
they
it just
zapped
yet.
some people
But
with
it's
it
just
yet?
interesting.
I mean, like,
People are well because we know that this frequency the military has used it as a direct energy weapon, like as a crowd control weapon. So if they were to somehow target these frequencies, potentially it could cause flu-like symptoms or health immunity breakdown. So there's a lot of information out there, and we're just here to go through it all and share it with you. Obviously, when we're on the FM, we try to filter it through our FM lens so that
we don't
can
cuss.
we don't cuss. And also, I know for me, we talked about this, I try to be a softer version of myself. So
Yeah.
even when we're talking about conspiracies and things we
We
believe
have to
in,
reach the
I think
people
you're
where they
still
are.
pretty hard, Derek.
but we still push it. I mean, like, but I don't just come out openly and say it.
Yeah.
I might be like more suggestive or,
It-
hey, maybe
yeah.
we should think
It's like
about
what we were
this,
saying
you
about
know?
meeting the people where they are. We have all kinds of listeners and all kinds of different stories that we're getting into. And some may know a lot about vaccines, but be skeptical about like the value of privacy, or really are the banks all doing that, or something like that. So it's almost like we have to wade into it a little bit, and there's times that's frustrating, but if you notice through time, the show consistently brings back these same themes. So even if you think we can go deeper, we'll call in, every Friday.
That's the cool thing is you guys call in, you can push the conversation without us having to do it. If you want to call in and be the total
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist and be like, guys, I think they engineered this whole thing to kill us, we'll just say, well, thank you for sharing
That's
that
a
opinion.
valid
We,
viewpoint.
think
Thank you
that's
for
interesting."
contributing to the dialogue.
So that way we don't have to
Conspiracy thinker
go
radio.
all. Yeah, we've already been called that whenever we talk
Yeah.
about facts. I mean, so anyways, guys, we'll be here next Friday with Johnny. Me and Micah will be here on Monday for 2 hours from 4
On
to 6.
kpft.org. You can listen
And,
online.
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the comments. And until next time, peace.
Good show, guys. Good show. Yeah. We did cover a good amount of stuff. Thanks, audience.